Chapter 14. A Whispering Filth. Cyrus. I'm losing my mind. I'm losing my mind. I'm losing my mind. I've already lost my mind, but I'm losing it even more. I'm not a killer. I'm not a killer. I'm not a killer. I'm not a killer, but it felt really, really good to kill that thing. It felt like scratching an old itch, like washing dirt off your skin. It felt really, really good. I sat in another barren tree along the shoreline, hugging my arms to my chest for warmth and praying that it didn't begin to rain again. The mist in the air still went to war with the pure essence of life that lived in this forest, but the further I got down the river, the more it felt like the purity, the good life was winning. I was happy about that, but I shouldn't have been. With every step, I became aware of a tremendous vibrancy, like I'd gone further and deeper into the forest towards something important. I wasn't trying to do that. I didn't want to go deeper. I wanted to leave. I wanted to be home. I wanted to stop being afraid. I wanted to feel like I was loved, and I wanted a hug from the others, and I wanted to be together and to be a part of something and not alone. I was sitting in a tree, shivering and hoping not to die, hoping not to keep losing my mind. I wanted them to come to me. Part of me wanted them. I wanted something to fight. Something felt right to end, to exterminate, to turn to oil and mist. Something I could fight, something I could affect, something I could kill. I could feel them out there. The black spots on the oily canvas, the torn holes. At times they ate, at times they were eaten, more rapidly with each moment as the paint swirled faster and I grew deeper into the forest. Why did I have to wait like this? I yelled into my hand, instinct against mind, against passion, against reason, all waiting for the silence around me to burst. I was going to go freaking crazy. I was already crazy. I was hot. My hands were heating up like I had a fever. My head throbbed, and oh my God, what if the growths came out of me, or they came out of my stomach, my back, my face, my arms, my legs? I stripped down, hanging my clothes around me, and I ran my hands along my body, feeling every inch for a sign of that black oil, for some sign that it would be bursting, that it would be splitting my skin and coming through. I wanted to kill it. I put my clothes back on, and then I sat with my eyes closed, my senses wide open. Oh, God, I was hungry. I devoured almost a third of my rations before I could even stop myself, and then half were gone by the time I was even able to wrap them up and stash them out of place. I was tired and hungry. The swirling battle going on out of sight would start to congeal, start to fall into some semblance of order, and then it would just turn wildly out of place, from wandering shapes down the river to like whispering, darting spots in the night to the flickering flashes through the trees and milling armies wandering the forest floor in formation. Some of them were right and some of them were wrong, but there were all these draping outlines and brushstrokes on the canvas of the world. It was the battle of blank spaces full of weight and solid shapes full of color, all fading into a gossamer sheen. It was all contracting and expanding and clawing forth and then fading and then pouncing and evaporating and spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning until I could barely hold myself in the tree. And then in a moment something congealed and took form, and it took me too long to realize it, but it was coming for me. I snapped from my haze, from my confusion, from my momentary insanity, and I snapped into reality. And I jumped from the tree with my pack on my back, sprinting as fast as I could down the riverbank, pounding footsteps, realigning me with my original 5 senses, the ones that still worked, that still told me I was alive and sane and experiencing, the world. A cloud passed the sun, and for a moment we ran in shadow, swishing footsteps behind me in the dirt, flaring above the sound of the wind. And then the late afternoon light shone out again, and with my senses on fire, I dropped to the ground, feeling slashing claw and snatching fingers graze past me as the beast lunged and missed. It crashed into the ground and rolled with a snapping, bulging burst of something that left part of it behind in the dirt. But what was left was sprinting towards me, and it was more than enough. It was as if desperate, grasping human arms had burst forth from the body of a wolf, tearing apart a portion of its face, exposing trailing intestines, and tilting the vertebrae out at impossible angles. On the floor lay the remnants of a 4th arm, which had torn open the creature's back hip and left it with only 3 working canine appendages, but still it came. I sprinted to the left, towards the woods, breaking through the tree line just as the creature exploded into the brambles next to me. It got caught on the thick vines for a split second that gave me a head start, and I tore off through the woods too. Nothing could be worse than that thing. I burst through dark foliage, and my 6th sense came alive with the hunger of the deep forest, but nothing glared so much as the desecrated wolf storming behind me, so I raced on. The deep woods was the only place that I had a chance to escape its closing speed, even with 3 legs, and use its clumsiness against it. Together we crashed through the growth, awakening the scattering creatures and birds and the trees, and poisonous vines ripped at my clothes. Hunting vine crawlers above us traced our paths and condemned me to the ground, and in the distance, great beasts began to tremble, sensing our chase. C blended excessive profanity with guiding directions, neither of which I would have survived without. The thickening forest had slowed our pursuit, but even with 3 limbs, it was faster than me, snapping and lunging as I wove around the trees and the vines and the brambles and the bushes and the roots and everything that was getting in my way. A sudden taste of fresh air on the breeze came at exactly the wrong time, and out to both sides now I could see the dappled sunlight. The rivers were meeting, and I was trapped in the middle. There was no more forest. Not for long. I continued to run, zigzagging through the tangle as I desperately maintained that short distance between us. I needed time. Surely there was somewhere that I could go that it couldn't. Again, the skittering of the vine crawlers above me pinned me to the ground, and, I knew that if I even tried, I would never vault into the trees long before the wolf dragged me down. I veered further along, through the forest, rivers drawing closer on either side. I burst out into the clear, where the forest ended and the rivers crashed together in a great frothing cauldron. The only place left to go was a stretching spear of stone that shined in the light, and with the desecrated wolf right behind me, I dug into the entirety of my being and raced for the edge. There was a great quiet as we ran, only the echoing sound of our footsteps on the stone, and then I leapt, out across the meeting of the rivers, the wolf's jaws snapping shut on my trailing hair and tearing out a portion of it as it soared past me, having overleaped. And then its trailing leg arms seized me by the neck, and we crashed down spinning into the rushing water. Arms snatched at me and claws ripped, and I kicked up at it as we tumbled, smashing into the stone of the riverbed and dragging across the river floor like crumpled paper in the wind. For a moment we were apart, and then crushed back together, and there were snapping jaws and dripping entrails pressed against my face, but never quite connecting with where they aimed. I saw reds and yellows of blood and sunset, greens of the trees and the riverbed, gray stone and fur, brown sand and guts, and Then we were separated, thrust up into the air just above the surface in time to grab a gasping breath, and then we were pulled under again. We were eddied and twisted, still fighting, still kicking, and I struggled for my life, and then in a shocking pause, we were thrust out into the air, at the edge of a waterfall. I was bleeding again, and the creature was falling apart as it fell, split among 3 pieces, each held together by exposed bone and congealed oil. But still it fought for me all the way down, mouth wide and popped eyes searching, as we crashed down into the stillness of the waterfall's basin. I went limp, all breath thrown from my body as we pushed down through the red, the gold, and into the silver water, all alight in the afternoon sun. It was surprisingly peaceful, out above a gaping pit of black, like we'd fallen out of reality and into empty color, where the currents simply swirled us around. Absurdly, impossibly, the wolf began to ripple and squelch towards me, a chain of blood and organs and misplaced parts, all shrouded in spreading oil. It wouldn't stop. It was driven by its hunger. But then, like a beam of darkness against the colorscape, a trident of spikes pierced up from the depths, the hunting spines of some massive animal that dwelled in the darkness out of sight, down in the depths of the waterfall's cauldron. Slowly, the spines began to retract, drawing the wolf down into the darkness, leaving behind only the cloud of ink-black oil. And then the swelling current whipped me up and away, further downriver, where I burst out of the water, desperate for air. I didn't remember swimming for shore, but I did remember crashing down on the rocks, soaking, wet, freezing, and crawling up the riverbank towards, well, what, I didn't know. There was no fight left in me, just a broken sob again as I curled up into the fetal position, face in the dirt. Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! I screamed. Shut up! Just stop. Please. Stop. He fell silent again, and I screamed into the ground, punching it with all I had. I punched it again and again and again until my knuckles were torn from the dirt, and then I slumped forward, curling down again. Why me? Why was this happening to me? Why? In the swirling colors beyond my vision, I became acutely aware of something very, very close to me. Another big thing. With a beaten sigh, I sat up, sitting back onto my knees and looking up in front of me, where the heavy breath came across my face, past me, in and out. I stood nose to nose with a wolf 10 feet tall, all in silver, with eyes that shone green in the fading sunlight, unblinking. I slumped, arms back. I won't run anymore, I said. I'm so tired. Could you just let me go, please? Above me, those jaws opened and the wolf descended towards the back of my neck. I slumped even more. I just hoped it didn't hurt too bad. My eyes fell closed. And then I felt my shirt tighten, and suddenly I was being lifted up into the air. My eyes flashed open. I was 5 feet above the ground, gently held in the wolf's jaws and slowly being carried away through the forest. I snorted, and then I think I wet myself, and then I passed out.